Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Aaron with HEX Life Style. So, in episode 19, I sit down with the one, the only, the Vintage Wiz. We talk about the virtual flea, his lives, and how they've absolutely blown up over the past 6 months during the quarantine. We talk good business versus bad business, networking, friendships that have been created throughout the vintage industry, and he talks a little bit about his recent trip to LA and all the experiences and the friendships that he made out there. So grab a drink, sit back, and enjoy episode number 19 with my buddy Kirk, aka the Vintage Wiz.
Andamos fugados y estos cabrones a mí no me van a coger. Casulando en el ley 8 arrebatado. De pasajero tengo la media 16. Y en el caserío endemoniado. Y el que me falta me se la va a coger.
Man, the Vintage Wiz, I appreciate you doing this. This is crazy. Like, I have a list that I say this to a lot of people, but the idea was I wanted to do this with a lot of our local, vintage guys, and we have a really good group here in Kentucky, in the Louisville and Lexington market for sure. And then you bleed down into Nashville and Cincinnati, and then the Indy area. So we've got a really good group here, but I had a list of people that I wanted to reach out to and get on this podcast early, and you were really high on that list. So, I appreciate you doing this. This is exciting. So we'll jump right in, man. So you, over the past, I guess 5 to 6 months, man, it seems like with this everything going on in quarantine, it's just every time I flip on Instagram, you got a live going, or you got something going on, and I love it because I look in it and it's like you got 150, 200, 300 people, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing, it seems like. So, I mean, what is that exceeded your expectations?
Definitely. So I'll give you a little background on myself. I'm not an Instagrammer by any means before COVID. So I kind of, my personal account, I have a couple thousand followers. I haven't posted on there since 2016. And I'm in the entertainment business, so I have my pictures that are tagged and whatnot or whatever, and I get reposted on different events that I do, and I just don't repost them because it's not my style. I wasn't into Instagram. I wasn't into anything like that. So, probably last year in October, we were home, and Midna, my girlfriend, was like, "Hey, let's start posting your shirts on Instagram." And I didn't know her motive was to sell them. My motive was to, hey, show off some tees. Her motive was to, hey, let's clear the closet.
Yeah.
So we started posting them, and there was a lot of following other accounts, to get exposure. I didn't really know too many people in the vintage community at all. I kind of had just been doing this the past couple of years by myself, just, going around going to different thrift stores and like vintage shops across the country when I would travel for work, just picking up things here and there. And, the first month was a little rough. I couldn't sell a tee. I couldn't, getting followers was difficult. If I wanted to sell a tee, I wasn't making any money off of it. That's for sure. So, after about a month, I kind of got busy again towards the end of the year with, Thanksgiving and Halloween and, Christmas and all that. And we kind of just gave it up, and, I didn't stop buying, and I've been buying vintage probably since like end of 2016. So, it's going to be almost 4 years now. And, so I started posting on Instagram. It was something new for me. In the beginning, I didn't even do it myself. She was the one who put up the pictures. And then, March came around, quarantine hit. I was bored at home, and I said, hey, you know what? Let's pick up this account again and let's see where it goes. I'm just going to start posting some stuff and see where it pops up. I started posting up my tees, and I started, diving into the different culture of Instagram of vintage, because, it's very different from reality. Like you go to the vintage shops and, you don't see Marvel Megas and these crazy movie tees and all these wraparound video game tees. You see a lot of the wrestling, a lot of the NASCAR, a lot of the TV stuff, which is cool. That's what I was into. And then I started being exposed to this other world of vintage on Instagram that I really liked,
Mm-hmm.
So I started with a lot of raffles. I would go in and open up my mail. I'd have 8, 9 people in there, and I was happy. If I ever got to 20, I was the happiest guy in the world.
Yeah.
And then, I started posting more about my page and a couple more of my things, and I started getting a little more traction. And, even in the beginning, though, it still wasn't that great for sales. I had to raffle off a lot of things. And then I did this 2K giveaway that was Mina's idea. She's like, hey, look, let's take this really cool picture in the living room, and let's hang all these tees on the wall, and let's take this really cool picture. And I was like, all right. And then, I went from 2,000 to 3,000 to 4,000 in like 2 weeks. So that kind of set the ball rolling. And then, at the same time that was going on, there was an open live with Chris on the virtual flea. The virtual flea had just started, and I said, I'm gonna get accepted on this. I was the first person in the live. I clicked requested, and he accepted me. I had a couple tees that in front of me that weren't for sale, but I put one for sale anyways, because I was unprepared. I didn't expect to get picked. And then, that birthed my first virtual flea set. Virtual flea went well the first time. I went back. The second time got MVP, and then it started kind of a train of MVP, consecutive MVPs, which obviously brought a lot of attention to my page. I started along with Body Double and Barter, we had a little inside joke going of like, making fun of each other in the lives and all that kind of stuff. And then, Taylor and I would jump on and make fun of Barter, and then I would jump on with Barter and make fun of Taylor, and then we'd all make fun of each other, and then, I started getting a little bit of traction on that too. To have 30, 40 people in the live, I'm like, wow, this is cool. And then, man, out of nowhere, Chris started joining my lives, and, we started getting into like real life conversations, not, very unplanned stuff, but we started talking about real life conversations and, different instances and what I thought about this and I thought about that. And, that was the birth of kind of Wiz Wednesday, and then the after party. And then shortly after that was a pre-party. So, for me, again, for somebody who doesn't have a personal Instagram really or any presence on it, to have 300 people in my live is insane,
Yeah.
And I think the highest I ever got to was 525 with Never Thrift, and we were auctioning off that Predator, and it was insanity, like I would have never expected to have gotten to that point, so quickly even, but just at all, so to answer your question, it is a super shocker to see that, and I'm very grateful for it. And vintage is something that it's fun, but it's still very time consuming. There's a lot of times where you're on the phone, you're looking for the next hit, you're searching for teas, you're doing market research, you're seeing, it's very time consuming. So I definitely have dedicated a lot of time to it, and I'm very happy and grateful to see that it pays off,
Yeah. I mean, that's what a lot of people that aren't in this industry or aren't fully into this industry, they don't understand the time that it takes and what's behind it. And, the time away from, other jobs or other, family and things like that to try to get this moving like that. And you seem, one of the things I'll say this, there's a ton to unpack in what you just said. So we got a lot to peel back there, but I'll say this about you. One of the things I've noticed is you incorporate your family and you incorporate your friends and things like that, and they're really involved in what you're doing. And so that makes it a lot more fun, not only for you, but it just gets everybody involved, and it lets people know that side of you, which I think is really cool. And a lot of people aren't open to do that, and I get that, but for you being able to do that and show that, it really pulls people in from that standpoint. So, but one of the things you mentioned, let's kind of go back here. So one of the questions I always ask, so it sounds like you had a lot of inventory in your closet. You've been collecting since 2016. Are you a collector first or a reseller first?
Oh, no. I am 1,000% a collector first. I would have never guessed that I would be reselling anything, because I just, they were all personal tees, and it came to the point where it was overflowing out of the closet. A completely different material from what's in there now, but there was just a lot of stuff. And Mina one day was like, "Hey, let's post them on the internet, see if we can sell them." But I've never been a reseller for vintage, at least. It was something that the virtual flea came along, and it was like, "Hey, I'm gonna just sell in the virtual fleet. You know, I would buy. I'd never really bought anything to resell it. Everything that I would buy was for personal, and then things just started getting, you know, things were started overflowing. You know, and then I had to buy a rack, and then whatever I would put on that rack would be like, all right, this is what I'm going to determine to sell on the virtual fleet, and then you know. Virtual fleas, you know, are amazing, but they are exhausting, and you have to exhaust a lot of energy in you know, filling up your rack every week. So you know, after I did it 10 weeks in a row, I was like, all right, I'm gonna take a long break here, and I'm gonna start doing these lives. And then I started with the lives, and I feel like a lot of the stuff that I put out into the lives, you know, people appreciate it. So you know, sometimes if I buy something that's not my size, or if I get a double of something or something that I can appreciate, but that's not necessarily for me, that's usually what I sell. You know, I don't sell anything random. I don't sell anything that I don't like myself. So I'm definitely a collector first. To answer your question, the reselling thing is something that's pretty new, but you know, it's been something that through COVID has helped me, and you know, I'm very thankful for it, you know?
Yeah. I think, you know, for me too, I'm a collector first, and that's how I started. You know, I guess I've collected really all my life, and looked to, you know, for thrifting and vintage. I always, you know, had a, you know, had an eye for wanting to collect unique things and stuff like that that other people didn't have. And for me, and you're probably kind of wired the same way. I think we kind of, all of us that have an entrepreneur mindset are wired this way. But I'm always seeing how I can get something for the least amount of money,
Yeah.
but the value of enjoyment from it. It might not even be, you know, it might not even be extremely, you know, valuable to other people, but it's valuable to me.
Correct.
I think that's what's cool about what we do, because a lot of people, they, you know, want that T-shirt from childhood, or something that's going to bring back that memory, nostalgia aspect. You know, like you and I were talking about the Salem tees and the big caricature tees and stuff like that. I've always got you know, I'm always looking for them, because I grew up in that, with wearing those as a kid, you know, which is kind of cool. So that leads me into to what you all, you know, the virtual, you know, we went into quarantine, and it just seems like the lives and the virtual, you know, stuff just absolutely took off on Instagram. And I knew that the market was, I mean, I knew that this, you know, and you know, this market and this culture was big, but I had no idea until you know, COVID. And then all of a sudden you start seeing everybody do their lives, starting to sell stuff. It's amazing to me, because that you said you just kind of jumped on that virtual fleet, because like I said, your growth over the past couple of months has just been insane. I contribute a lot of it to, like I said, you and your ability to pull people in and keep people entertained. I watch a lot of those lives, and I mean, I hate to say it, but they just bore me to death. And yours is very entertaining. So that's, and Chris, and then people that jump on. I mean, so I think it's created a whole new world. Where do you see that? And that leads into this. So where do you see that going once things do get back to normal, and people are out and about and shopping, and doing actual fleas in person and pop-ups and things like that?
Well, first off, you know, I'll start off by saying this. I think that the vintage market is only going to continue to grow. I think it's right now, although it is a pretty decent sized market. I think, you know, in comparison to other things, it's relatively small. So I think the vintage market is going to continue to grow, you know, exponentially through the coming years. That being said, um, you know, I think the lives are going to continue. I think people are obviously going to, you know, go back to their normal life with the fleas and shopping at malls and doing all that kind of stuff. But, you know, one thing I did notice was, and this happens to me with I'd say 1 out of every 10 guests that I get on one of my lives, they'll tell me, hey, this is the first live I've ever done. And you know, you made me comfortable to go on there and, you know, show my stuff and have a drink and smoke my hookah and eat food, whether it's fast food or a peanut butter jelly sandwich or whatever it is. You know, like, you make it comfortable for me, because, you know, for me, I'm the host. You know, I like to make jokes. I like to say the same thing 100 times and be repetitive, and I'm drinking and I'm smoking hookah and I'm doing all this stuff. So it kind of takes off the pressure from the seller and just show off your stuff, you know? So I think a lot of people are going to become more comfortable with themselves on the camera. I know the first time that I was on, and I've said it many times, you know, first time I've ever been on Instagram live period was when Chris called me on that open live, and I was shaking, you know, like I was literally shaking. There was 200 people in there. And
I don't believe that. I don't.
yeah,
I
no,
don't
I was, I was terrified, you know, and you know, the more, and then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start jumping on lives for raffles. All right, let me get on raffles, and let me do this, and let me do that. And it was one of those things where it was like, I got more comfortable with myself in front of the camera, and now there's 500 people in there, and I'm, you know, and I'm good, you know. But you know, I think you have to be yourself when you're on camera. A lot of people get in trouble by not being themselves, and you know, just getting away from the context of what they believe in, and you know what they're there to do. But you know, to answer your question again, I think that this is going to continue to grow. I don't expect the numbers to be, I got to be realistic, right? I don't expect there to be 250 people every Wednesday night, every Friday night, every Sunday night, 200 people. You know, the fleas, the virtual fleas, 300 people. I think when things get back to, you know, normal life, or as close to normal as possible, I think, you know, the normal is going to be 80 to 100. You know, maybe 70 is going to be a decent number. I don't think that these numbers that we see now, if you see the numbers from when like lives from the beginning of quarantine, like in March and April, those numbers were, every single live you would go into was crazy, 300 people no matter what, you know.
yeah.
So I think that that's going to continue to drop a little bit because people are going to get busy. People have families, people have work, people have to go to sleep early because the next day they have this and that. I think we'll adjust to the times. I think maybe we'll start stuff earlier. I think, you know, we'll you know, shorten the time period of these lives at some point. But I think that more people are going to go live. I think, you know, the community is going to continue to grow, and I just expect the numbers and the lives just to drop a little bit for now. You know, that's my expectation.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think it will, but I think you know it's opened up such a door that it's never going to be shut from that standpoint,
Never.
because the ability to sell, and I'm a collector first, but I also resell. I have a, you know, a shop in the downtown area there, and you know, sell. I don't sell a whole lot online, but I have an online store and things like that. And I find it really, you know, difficult, you know, when things sit in a store, sit at a spot, there's only a handful of people that are going to see it
Correct.
on a daily basis. And the odds of that percentage of people, you know, being collectors is very slim. They're usually looking for something, you know, not as expensive, something cool with good content to wear out. You know, what you're capturing on these virtual fleas and on these lives that you're doing is people that are in this industry that collect or looking for that piece, and almost view it as art, as you would say, in a lot of different ways. But let me get your thought on this. What I think, and I could be wrong, but I'm big into the fleas and the pop-ups and the things like that. What I envision and what I'm thinking about in my head, what I want to do moving forward at some of our events is I want to incorporate the live. So, you know, what I mean by that is, you know, having these flea events and getting an old school auction number. You know what I'm talking about? Like, have you ever been to an auction where you
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
number and you're
Easy.
sitting out there and you have a stage and you have, you know, 5 or 6 vendors that have put T-shirts up there to sell, to auction, and you're not only are you auctioning to the crowd, but you're auctioning to, you know, it's live. You say you're going live with you or Chris or somebody's handling it, or I just see it opening up so many different doors from that standpoint. It's almost pulling in more of an audience than you even have now, you know, and introducing people to that kind of to what this world is. You know, my wife still like cannot believe. I almost feel like I'm lying to her when I tell her an Aladdin T-shirt went for $6,000, and she's almost like, no, that's not, that's not. There's no way. And I'm like, yeah, it did. So what do you think? I mean, do you see those two worlds coming together, like the pop up and the flea, you know, the thrift con and the flea world coming in, you know, together with that virtual, somehow doing virtual where you're just capturing an even larger group of people that can't attend the event?
I'll touch on the first point that you said with, you know, with the material that's coming through the fleas. So, and I've said this openly before, without the virtual flea and these lives, I would not have the collection that I have. You know, it's just physically impossible to track down every Instagram seller that posts something, every eBay. You know, it's just impossible. You know, I buy so much on the flea because at the end of the day, it's the new cool place to show off your pieces that you want to sell. You know, so without the virtual flea, without the lives, I would not have a fraction of the pieces that I have. And, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, when you have to fight with somebody in the DMs and do a silent auction or whatever, you know, you never know which way that's going to go. But in an auction, if you really want a piece and you're set out to get it, there's your opportunity. So I think that is a huge component in our market that is going to continue to grow. And again, it makes it easily accessible for people to get stuff that they wouldn't normally have access to. You know, I don't have access to round two LA inventory, you know, and the same way they don't have access to yesterday Miami inventory. But through these lives and through the fleet, you know, you never know what somebody's going to bring out. And also, you know, it's instead of taking it to a store and getting store credit or putting it on eBay and getting hit with the fees or putting it on Depop or whatever, you know, you now have the opportunity to just click one button, go on Instagram Live and get paid immediately for something, you know, without having to jump through hoops and talking directly with the buyer, with the seller, which is a huge plus because, you know, things happen in life. You know what I mean? And there's obstacles and there's problems that arise every day. And just by clicking a button and being able to sell something, you know, on eBay, you have to sit there and wait and see if somebody's going to buy it. If you're on Depop, same, you know, not a knock to any of those platforms because I use them all, but it's a waiting game at the end of the day. Unless you price something ridiculously cheap in an auction, you jump on a live, hey guys, I'm going to be auctioning this. You give them, you know, the heads up and boom, you know, you get paid on the spot for the most part. So I think that's a huge component. And then to touch on your second point, you know, that's already something that's in the works, in my opinion. I've made it public that Chris and I are going to be doing an event in Orlando very soon, and it's going to be called a virtual flea. Instead of virtual, it's virtual, like what I say, the brr.
Yeah.
So, you know, and we've talked about it. We've talked about possibly incorporating a live auction on there, you know,
Yeah.
with people on Instagram, which, you know, it's going to be kind of tricky because of the lag at the moment. And then people with, you know, holding up numbers or just putting their hand up or whatever it is, you know. So I think at some point in these big events and these big flea markets, that's going to become, once there's a software that supports it, I see it happening, you know, off the bat at a Kobe swap meet, at a thrift con, at our event, at anything, you know what I mean? At a Melrose, at a whatever it is, I definitely see it happening.
Yeah. No, that's exciting, man. And you know, that ties right into, you know, what the projections are. They're talking this to be a 69 billion. There's this market to be about a $69 billion market, you know, by the year 2024. You know, the as far as, you know, vintage and you know, the used clothing market in general. You know, you've got large corporations now that are taking notice and starting to try to get involved, and it's kind of crazy, but I love it, man. I mean, I love that projection because it gets me excited for different things to come. You know, I'm my mindset is always goes to networking, entrepreneurship, you know, from that standpoint. How can you build a brand a little bit more? You know, I enjoy that whole thing, and that's kind of my goal always has been to start a video podcast similar to what I'm doing. Now the fact that I get to talk to people and talk shop with people about something I'm passionate about, you know, I'm wanting to build on that, and that excites me more than selling T-shirts, you know, at this point. But talk a little bit about getting, you know, kind of getting back into this, you know, in 2016. Talk about that from that standpoint of the networking and the friendships that you've made. You know, you mentioned Chris a lot. You know, were you all friends before this, or is this something that kind of has come about and you all have grown to know each other's families and things like that? Because I think that is something that's missed so much in what we do in this industry, is the friendships that are made and the relationships and the networking, the things that like that are built along the way. People don't see that side of things. So talk a little bit about that.
So when I started collecting vintage, I didn't know a single person that collected vintage other than Vintage Museum, which is a friend of mine, Mike, that I've known for a while in Miami. But we never spoke vintage. I know he had his Vintage Museum account. He had like a little shop called Vintage Museum, and but we never spoke about it. So I would go to Orlando, I would go to Las Vegas, I'd go to LA, I'd go to New York, and I would go with Mina or by myself, whatever. I'd pop into all these vintage shop. I just pick things up, and I really never communicated with anybody on vintage other than a friend of mine in Miami who's kind of the one who put me onto it. When I started seeing him wear some of the pieces, I'm like, wow, it's really neat, but he's not a guy that has a social media presence for vintage or is in to talk about vintage. He just likes a shirt kind of thing. You know what I mean? So when I started collecting, really, it was just, let's hit Instagram and let's see who we meet. It's kind of the same way I've done it in everything that I've been involved in. And I would say, Taylor, Barter, All American, Chris, there's countless guys who have become a part of my everyday life. It's pretty crazy to say that. And I met Barter for the first time, Cortland from before Passe. I met him in person. I met Chris in person. There's a couple guys who I haven't met in person, but like I said, we talk to every day. City Dump Trevor also had a huge influence on me in the start of like this whole Instagram stuff. So there's a lot of guys who are I can call friends, that we speak to every day. We know each other's wives or girlfriends or kids, and although we haven't met in person or we have, I can tell that they're trustworthy people, and I look forward to meeting them in the future if I haven't. Barter King Steven just got engaged yesterday. He was like, hey, you got to come to my engagement party on the 27th in LA. I went to LA 2 weeks ago to go meet Angel Alzona, another one, and Chris, for this little documentary thing that they're filming. So, Taylor is another one that we've become very close. So yeah, the friendships in this are really the best thing about it. I always tell people, hey, the t-shirts are cool, but the integrity and, the person that you're dealing with is what matters the most. I believe in bringing a lot of like other business ethics to this. And, doing a lot of people ask me, hey, how do you grow your page besides having cool stuff? I said, do business the right way, so I've kind of brought that to my page but yeah, a lot of the people that I've met, and you're going to have your run-ins with people here and there, and it happens, it's like in every business, but a lot of the guys that I've grown closer to are definitely people that I see myself, being friends with down the road. And, there's even been different business opportunities that presented themselves from this, one being the live event that we're going to do. I've talked to other things that have nothing to do with vintage with other vendors and other people on Instagram who are doing their own thing in their own world that, we can possibly exploit and bring to the forefront in the near future, which is really cool because it takes the approach of, this is bigger than vintage kind of thing. You know what I mean? Which I'm all about, because at the end of the day, this started as a hobby for me, and it really has grown into a very strong passion and sort of and a business. I have a company registered and everything for this. I would have never guessed that. And it couldn't have happened without a lot of people who I respect and I trust and have helped me a long way, because nobody gets anywhere by themselves. It's very difficult. You got to make the right relationships, you got to do things the right way, but there's always a supporting cast that helps you, or at least me, along the way in this journey.
Yeah. No, I love that, brother. I mean, I feel the same way. I mean, I've always said this. I have a 14-year-old and a 13-year-old son and daughter. And the one thing I've always told them is that you're really a product of the 5 people you surround yourself the most with. And, I think that's important in this industry more than anything, is getting in, working and creating a friendship and a bond, almost a family type bond with people that you trust and that you have the same, some of the same visions that you do, but more than anything, want to really see you and your family succeed. I think that's kind of the key in all of this. I mean, I've made some great friendships throughout this whole process as well. And it's funny because a lot of people call me, I'm the old guy here, so I'm 41, but at the same time, a lot of these younger guys and stuff, we've created great friendships and great bonds and things like that. And, asking me 5-6 years ago, I would have never thought that I would have had anything in common with 25 and 28-year-old guys, at this point. But I guess I'm a kid at heart is where I'm going with that. But I agree, man. And I think you've done a good job. You guys have a great thing going. I mean, when you look at what we do, setting a good example and having a good business ethics side of things and doing business the right way, you're always, and then also when you start to serve others and take care of other people, your friends and things like that, the success and the other things kind of really fall into place. And I think you've done a good job of that from what I can just tell, visually on Instagram and your stories and stuff. So, hey, talk about your trip to LA, because I'm extremely jealous, first off, because Earthling, their new spot looks insane.
It is.
And you got to see it firsthand. I'm really thinking hard about making a trip out there as soon as they get, everything up and running, just so I can see it in person. I've got one of my best friends lives in San Diego, so I would make it a trip, to do a couple things. But tell me about that trip to LA. How awesome was that?
It was really awesome. It's kind of like putting the pen to paper, when you meet somebody for the first time. And again, I met Rich RS, who was one of the first guys who I ever did a deal with in vintage, through Instagram. Earthing, Nick and Hannah, Cortland before Passe, Chris, obviously, 1980 something called Drina, his wife, his kids, Thrift Martian, Barter King, Steven, Salute 24/7 Vintage. I went to a flea market. I ran into Vintage Rag House. I ran into Mostly Vintage LA. I ran into Thanks Jeremiah. You run into all these people, and the reception that I got was amazing. First time, I went to LA 12 times last year, and literally for work, and I was in and out of thrift shops and stuff, but I didn't have an Instagram, so nobody connected a face to a name. But I went to round two, and I ran into a couple different places, and people, hey, Wiz, what's up, man? I thought that was pretty cool. You know what I mean? Coming from a different walk of life where I have a presence in like the Latin music game, but in this, it's like I had to start fresh, and it was like, so for somebody to come up to me and say, yo, man, I love your page or whatever, and I actually had people like, yo, let me show you this, and let me take you to this booth, and people openly would walk on with open arms. I went to the Us Vintage shop with James, and I went to a lot of little different spots. People showed me around. I came back with a lot of great stuff. Mina also was able to go with me, and we turned it into a really fun time. We went to dinner with Chris. We had our own time. We drove up and down LA. I went to my first flea market, which was Silver Lake, which was really cool. So, I had an amazing time. Again, I picked up a lot of great pieces. I was able to meet a lot of great people who I have only spoken to, through FaceTime, and it's pretty cool when you get to shake somebody's hand and when you get to show them love. And Angel Alzona is another one. The main reason was, shout out to her, Angel Alzona. She's putting together a very special project. And, she was like, you got to come out. You got to meet Chris. I got to get it on camera. This is going to be special. So we did that. We did Wiz Wednesday from before Passe's warehouse. We did the pre-party from Chris's house, and then I flew home. I was home Sunday morning and did the after party from my house. So it was an amazing experience. Again, I got to meet a lot of incredible people. I got to do a lot of incredible things. I'm very familiar with LA, but again, I'd never seen the vintage side of it, face to face with other people, other than just going to the shops and whatnot over there.
Yeah, it's the vintage scene in California. I don't care what anybody says. It's very different. It's so, it's everywhere. It's the pipes there, everything. What's that?
But I'm jealous. I wish it was like that here too, but unfortunately it's not.
Yeah. And that's, we've got, I'm in Kentucky. You're in Miami at least. We'll get to that in two. I got to ask you about something here, but Kentucky, the Louisville market, you've got Max and Brian and some of them that have really built up that market, and they have a huge following. And we're trying, we worked really hard in the Lexington market because we have University of Kentucky here. So there's a want in this market for it, but it's never going to be on the level of like a Miami or a New York or LA for that matter, California side of things. You mentioned you mentioned a little bit about going out there and meeting all of these people. So you had not met any of them, right?
Never. I had never met him face to face.
So, I mean, it's as awesome as it is, it's probably a little overwhelming because you just want to talk about everything and get to know them as best as you can. So I have a question. Did anybody on your way out there, did anybody in the airport yell at you, say, Wiz?
No.
No? Huh?
No, not at the airport, no.
Yeah, I figured people would be recognizing you.
No.
I know I would have. If I had seen you, I'd be like, Wiz. I would have given like, no, I tell you what you do that sticks in my head more than anything. And I don't know, maybe it's because I love Banties. I don't know.
Oh, Lobanti.
That one sticks in my head. Like I'll get up in the morning and get ready to get in the shower, and I'm like, it just clicks in my head. And then when it gets in your head, you can't get it out. You cannot get that out.
That's actually a close friend of mine who I recently found out was into vintage. I've known Tito for probably 18 years. And this year I found out that he was into that. He works for a big brand down here in Miami. And we started talking about it. We talk pretty frequently, and I had no idea that he was into vintage. And he's like, "Yo, I started a page too. I have 100 followers." I'm like, "What is it?" He's like, "Lobanti," and I was like, "Wow, that's an incredible name." And then I just started with a Lobanti, and then it kind of stuck.
No, that is you're right. It is an absolutely incredible name because that's always been the joke. I'm a huge hip hop guy. I like a lot of the older hip hop, but it seems like everybody that comes out now with their name has Little in it.
Yeah.
Every single rapper that comes out has Little in their name, no doubt. And so that's perfect. But yeah, that one sticks in my head for sure. So let's talk about the Heat. You're a Heat fan, right?
I am. Yes, sir.
I am super pumped. And I don't have an NBA team here. So for me, University of Kentucky is like an NBA team. We just produce the NBA players. We put them on. So I love seeing Anthony Davis succeed. But I'm a huge. My son and I are huge Tyler Hero fans. He came to UK for him and Bam. We love Bam. So for both of them to be on the Heat, we're real excited about that.
Crazy, right?
We'd love to see a Heat Lakers matchup.
That's kind of what I'm hoping for. Also, I'm a huge LeBron fan, and I'm a huge Heat fan. So LeBron is really the only player that I root for. Ironically enough, probably my second favorite player in the league is Devin Booker. I love his game.
Yeah,
another
Kentucky boy.
Yeah, another UK guy. So that's why I said ironically. But I was really rooting for the Suns when they were in the bubble to get out of there and make it to the playoffs. I want to see him succeed. But I'm really hoping for a Lakers Heat final. I would have to find my way into the bubble to watch at least a game in person. I watched LeBron all through the years here in Miami. I was able to experience the finals all 4 years, thankfully. And I like to see how the Heat bounce back. From losing LeBron is tough. You know what I mean? Losing the best player in any sport is tough. And we put it together relatively quickly, and we never became irrelevant, which is great. I think that he'd have a really strong core, in the organization. The brass is pretty good, and I'm really excited. Jimmy Butler was also one of my top 5 favorite players, and he ended up in Miami. I was stoked. So a lot of people criticize him for his attitude and this and that, and now that he's on the Heat and he's got like this attitude where we're not losing, I love that, and I love the hero drafting, and I like Bam, and Goran I was a little suspect about, but he's showing up. Duncan Robinson, the Heat are really a team that you could tell is like they mesh so well. We don't have like the best players on the court aside from Jimmy Butler, and Bam is also now making his name as a superstar, but like we're doing it. So if we beat Boston, which I think we have a really good shot. Even though I'm a big Jason Tatum guy too, I think Jason Tatum is probably the leader of the new pack for the young guys, him and Booker. But we'll see. I'm excited, and I'm excited to have gotten this far. Period. So
yeah. No, that Heat Boston that's a huge matchup, man. I mean, it's a good matchup, I think, for the Heat though.
I think so too.
I think they'll do fine, and I think the rest has helped. That'll help too, because I mean, I can only imagine. It just seems like they're just worn out. Every player. I mean, I'm a Jamal Murray. He's a Kentucky guy, and he's just killing it for the Nuggets.
Really?
And,
I can't believe they fought back 3-3.
yeah, so he looks like he's just beat down. But man, if the Nuggets could beat the Clippers,
That would be
in
insane.
Game 7, that would be crazy. But I'd be a kid in a candy store if we had the Lakers, Nuggets. Of course, we have the Celtics and Heat, but a lot of Kentucky boys in the mix, and that's what I've been waiting for. Because, like I said, I don't have an NBA team. They're talking about getting one in Louisville. They're thinking about the talk was before a lot of the COVID stuff was that the Sonics would end up coming to Louisville. What used to be the Sonics.
Yeah.
So we'll see, man. They may put another one back out in Seattle. I don't know, but I'd love to see an NBA team here. We would definitely support it.
I've got a great fan base for every sport. Seahawks are supported. Even the Mariners, they haven't been relevant for years, but I think their attendance is still pretty high.
Yeah.
Like Seattle's a great city, and not to mention the colors on that stuff. The Supersonics vintage stuff is crazy.
Oh yeah, I just sold a pair of Supersonics, a pair of Patrick Ewings. They were because he played for the Sonics there toward the end of his career, so he came out with some Ewings that were Sonics.
Wow.
They were the maroon and green. They weren't the green and yellow. They were like when they had the maroon and green colors. I guess it was late '90s probably. Right when they got Durant, right around that time, I think they changed their logos and colors and stuff. But yeah, I've always liked the Sonics old logo with the green and the yellow for sure. So talk some football for a second. So I saw on your story, are you all Colts fans?
We are all Colts fans. Well, I'm a Colts fan, and I kind of forced my family to be Colts fans also.
Yeah.
So it's kind of strange how that happened. 1999, I was a diehard University of Miami fan, and when I mean diehard, I mean diehard. Like that's been my team, since I was a kid. I used to show up to the stadium at 8:00 in the morning, the Orange Bowl, just to get ready and prep for the games, even when I was a kid. So, my favorite player ever there was Edgerrin James.
Oh yeah.
And 1999, the Colts select Edgerrin James to the team, and I said, well, I was a Cowboy fan growing up in the 90s. Everybody was a Cowboy fan. Emmett, Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, it was just everybody. It was America's team. And then, the Dolphins, I never really got into, I kind of lost a little bit of interest in football. Probably 97, 98, I was a big baseball guy. And then, I was still watching and I love this dude, Edgerrin James, and he gets drafted by the Colts. And I said, you know what? I'm going to support Edgerrin James. And then, they ended up drafting Reggie Wayne, and they had Peyton Manning, and they had Marvin Harrison. And, I think it was Edgerrin James' second year in the league. The 2000 season, Peyton goes down with an injury and they're terrible. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stick by this team. I like them, and ever since then, it's crazy because for as long as I've been alive, I was born in '87. The Colts have played in 2 Super Bowls. And ironically enough, the 2 Super Bowls they played in have both been hosted in Miami.
Yeah.
So, I've been blessed and I've been able to go to both Super Bowls. The first one was against the Bears where we won. And the second one was, against the Saints where it didn't go so well and we lost. But, it's still an amazing memory for me. And I've stuck with the Colts ever since. I love the colors. I love the culture. I love the organization. I think the owner's done an amazing job throughout the years of always, keeping them semi-relevant. We might not always be in the AFC Championship game, but, for the most part, always in the playoffs. We have something to look forward to every season. And again, even when they were bad, I like them for whatever reason. I've always been a Colts fan, and it's always been a dream of mine to go to Indianapolis and watch a Colts game. It's one of the few sporting events that I've looked forward to and I've never been to, and I can't wait for the day. Last year I went to the game in Tennessee. With me now, I went to Nashville, and the Colts got that W in week 2. And I was going to go to Jacksonville for the game yesterday, but then I realized that there was no fans allowed, even though there was tickets for sale on StubHub. And, I called, and they were like, yeah, no, there's nobody allowed in the stand. So, I mean, anytime they come to Florida, I try to make it out to see them because, I'm just a huge Colts fan.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you've got better bragging rights than I do. I'm a Bengals fan, so we haven't won a playoff game in 24 years. 20.
Wow, that's a rough. I'll tell you what, that is a rough team to be a fan of. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, dude, but I love them, man.
Detroit.
I love them. We had a heartbreaker yesterday. I was sick.
One loss, terrible.
I was sick, and but I'm used to it at this point.
You've got something to look forward to now with Joe Burrow, at least.
Oh, yeah, and AJ Green's healthy, and and all that.
Nixon, Tyler Boyd, like you got some players this year.
Yeah, I tell you what, Philip Rivers looked good yesterday.
Never liked him. You know,
Yeah,
I never liked him. I liked Jacoby Brissett. I thought we should have given him another chance. The Andrew Luck thing absolutely crushed me. I remember, you know, he became my new favorite player. You know, he became my new
yeah,
favorite man. When we drafted him, I watched him through Stanford, and I was like, I wanted to suck that year. You know, like I was like, I can't wait till the Colts are so bad. Peyton's hurt; he's out for the season. And I'm not gonna lie, when we let Peyton go, I was sad, but I knew that the Andrew Luck time was here. You know what I'm saying? I was
yeah,
like, this is the right move for the organization. We're moving in the right direction. And I was extremely excited for last year's season. I can't tell you, like I was like, we're gonna make it to the Super Bowl. Everybody was hyping us up, and then all of a sudden he retired in the preseason, and I remember when I was sitting, I remember who was around me, and I couldn't believe it. You know, like I saw on the bottom line of the ESPN ticker, and I was watching a Florida State game. I can't remember who they were playing against, but I was watching a Florida State game, and I was just in shock, you know, and
yeah.
I was hurt, you know,
Oh
I was
yeah,
hurt.
I think everybody was in shock. I mean, that guy's young.
And he's incredible, and he's very smart, and I think that's part of the reason why he retired. He's like, look, I'm looking at this in the long term. You know, he seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders, and he has involved in a bunch of different businesses. So you know, I think he was like, you know what, I'm tired of taking this beating, and you know, I can't knock a man for looking out for his health and whatnot, but it was definitely a heartbreaker, you know. And last year I looked forward to Jacoby. He didn't have the season that I thought he was going to have, and then, you know, when we got Philip Rivers, you know, it's like one of those guys that I never liked him throughout his whole career. I never liked him in San Diego. I always thought he was a crybaby, and now he ended up on my team, and he's my starting quarterback. So
Yeah.
I don't have a choice not to like. I don't have a choice whether to like him or not. I got to support him, but I wish the organization would have gone in a different direction. But you know, it's a nice patch up for now, I guess. You know.
I think ownership and management will be good for Philip Rivers. I don't think he had that completely at San Diego, and so I think that'll be good because the Colts have a good, you know, they have a good organization around them. So I think that'll hopefully build, and he's got a lot of good young talent too. So
Yeah.
you know, we'll see, man. They're in a tough division. Their division is pretty tough. You know, this
Tennessee.
year especially.
It used to be Jacksonville, Tennessee, and the Texans were a laughing stock of the AFC.
Yeah.
Now they're all good. You know.
They're all good. Yeah. What about? Did you like Nashville? Did you and your wife like Nashville?
We loved it. You know, we had an amazing time in Nashville. Everyone was super nice. The food was incredible, like incredible.
Yeah.
We went to Husk, which is like her favorite cheeseburger
Oh,
place. She went to it in Charleston, in South Carolina. I had never been, and she took me there. You know, we had an amazing time on the rooftops, and just the energy of that city is so special. Man, what's the name of the restaurant that I loved? Skull's Rainbow Room was like my favorite restaurant on the entire planet now. You know, that place was super special. We loved it, and I can't wait to go back.
yeah, yeah. It's only about 3 hours from me, so we spend a lot of time in Nashville, especially before the lockdown and everything. But
Have you ever been to Skulls?
yeah, yeah,
It
and
is
Husk.
incredible.
I've been to the Husk. I've been to Husk there and the Husk in Charleston.
Oh, really? Oh, that's the one that she had gone to, the one in Charleston.
Yeah, yeah. They're. It's good. It's good. I mean, yeah, I love Nashville. I mean, my wife and I, we always joke around because we love music so much, and we talk about, you know, if it wasn't for the kids, you know, in their schools and things like that, we would be living down there because we love it. We love it so much, and I tell you, man, the vintage community is huge down there. It's a little different because you have Music City Vintage, and you have, you know, some of your more true like round two style shops, but then you have a lot of really old true vintage too, which is cool. So it's definitely
I
got a
don't
really
think we
cool
made it to
vibe
any
there.
vintage shops up there, honestly. We did. That's one of the few places. I mean, we try to go to as many vintage shops as possible, and I don't think that we made it to a vintage shop out there,
Well, next
which I
time
wish we would
definitely,
have.
yeah, next time definitely do that. I mean, because it's like I said, you go to the east side of Nashville, there's a ton of them, but
Really.
a lot of really good vintage shops there for sure. So let's kind of get back onto that really quick, and then we'll wrap it up. I know you got a lot of stuff to do, but so what are some of the positives? You know, we've talked a little bit about the networking and the friendships and things like that. What are some of the positives and some of the negatives, would you say, to this industry right now?
Um, some of some of the positives are definitely, um, the so vintage is something like unlike a lot of other collectibles. People collect baseball cards, they collect sneakers, and just it's vintage to me is so unique because and it's honestly why I have a hard time jumping off like now watching lives and auctions and all that kind of stuff because one day the tea you've been looking for the past 2 years, past 3 years, past 6 months can pop up out of nowhere. And if you don't, capitalize on that opportunity, you might not see it again for a really long period of time. In sneakers and cards and all that kind of stuff, like things pop up and, they're mass produced. These t-shirts might have been mass produced 20, 30 years ago, but, the unique ability to represent yourself through these t-shirts is really cool, in my opinion. That you hang on to the nostalgia from when you were a kid. No matter what walks of life you came from, there's something for everybody. There's something for every genre of, video games, movies, music, literally everything. So, I think the unique ability to express yourself through clothes is pretty cool. I think I treat this like art. You know what I mean? Like this stuff to me is art and it's incredible. And it's something that, that I appreciate. Another positive note on this is the community has grown so much in the past couple of months. And I think as crazy as it sounds, quarantine helped out a lot because people are at home. They got to dig through stuff. Although they weren't able to dig through bins or whatnot, they were able to dig through stuff they had at home, different storage units, whatnot. I know for me, it helped me kind of like, take on this, how can I say it? I had to get creative. I'm in the entertainment business, so for me everything was shut down. I had to get creative on different things of what was the next step? How was I gonna I had to get creative in the sense of like a different stream of income. You know what I mean? Like I think it definitely opened up something for me besides a super strong passion, something that to be able to provide for my family. Between the lives and the fleas and the reselling and all that kind of stuff, which to me is a very positive because it's a huge positive because it gave everybody the opportunity to just go somewhere where they weren't being charged, such as a bin, and be able to take things out of there and sell them and provide for their family, put food on their table, which, to me is a huge positive. And then, the negative of this is that, we're living in an era that I feel like at some point people are losing the sense of a dollar on these things. The numbers on these teas has gone, gotten exponentially high. And although it is a negative at some point, some teas are deserving of those price tags, in my opinion. There's people who are taking advantage of that market, and there's a lot of bootlegs. And the bootlegs have gotten so good that it's hard to tell a fake. So a lot of people are taking advantage of the teas that are popular right now, and they're copycatting them, and they're spoofing people on different things. And I think that's definitely one of the biggest negatives in this community. People who are trying to take advantage of others through bootlegs and scamming and all that kind of stuff. Taking payments, not sending. I'm very big on calling people out for that. So you could probably tell my life and different things. I'm quick to point a finger, for somebody doing something wrong because I think that needs to be brought to light.
100%. And let me build on that. And I'll let you finish. Yeah, I agree 100%. When people are doing bad business, I mean, you have such a platform, that it's important to get that out there so other people aren't burnt from that. You know, I can say, when I started reselling, I was looking. I've always sourced in different areas. I'm not a bins guy. I don't sit at the bins, and I just don't. Time is the most valuable thing to me.
I don't
So,
think there's anything wrong with that. I think people
yeah,
who don't go to the bins get a bad. I don't go to the bins either, and
yeah,
people are like, oh, you're lazy or you're this or you're that. Honestly, I would like. I don't think that there's anything wrong with not going to the
yeah.
bins. I think if you're able to source and do things on your own without going to the bins, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and more power to you. There should be a rule that you have to get things from the bins. I think that's ridiculous.
Well, I've always worked in a different way. I mean, I could sit there and spend my day, hoping that something rolls out in a bin, and that I'm able to find it before 15 other guys. or
Right.
girls, and so you've got that side of things. Goodwill hasn't produced. There's so many people, even college kids out there going and grabbing anything and everything they can. So I've found different outlets. I've got a lot of good connections within some different thrift areas and church stores, Catholic stores, yard sales, you name it. So
Right.
I've been fortunate enough to have some of those things, and that's where I do a lot of my sourcing.
Right.
But you know, I've had people that reach out to me and say, "Hey, I'm getting out of this. You buy me out. You know,
Right.
I'll sell you all this stuff for like dirt cheap." And so early on in me reselling and doing this, like I said, I've always collected. I've always had my own collection, but buying stuff and being able to fill a shop and resell, I got burnt early on by a guy
So,
down.
what did in March? I think we got scammed for like $210, and
That's what I did. Yeah, I did too. $250, man, or $210, something to close right around that. And
somebody sent you a bunch of pictures that weren't even his, and like, hey, friends and family,
yeah,
and the whole thing. Yeah, they got me
yeah.
hurt now.
You got okay. So I don't feel so bad,
No,
but I did. I got scammed by that, and it put a really negative taste in my mouth. And I'm like, shit. I mean, maybe this isn't my. Maybe this isn't the industry, or maybe this isn't what I thought it was. Then I started, because I'm a pretty trustworthy person, and my wife tells me that I'm way too trustworthy.
that's our problem, though. We run into people who automatically off the bat we trust them, and we probably shouldn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I got burnt, man. And the way I looked at it is probably the way a lot of people don't look at it. Is I just said, clearly that guy needed that money more than I did in that situation. Hopefully it went to something good. And I actually put it out. This is the first time I brought it up in forever. But where I'm going with that is that it left a kind of a negative feel and a negative vibe for me. And so I'm very selective on where I source, where I buy, who I work with from that standpoint. And I learned my lesson. I don't buy anything. Like, I'll buy online, I'll buy on eBay and some of those because they're trusted. But I'm very, very hesitant to buy on Instagram unless I know you. So, but back to what you were saying, and I hated to interrupt, but I just wanted to mention, when that happened to me, and you probably did the same, dude, I let everybody in the industry know. Like, I tried to blast it out there to let people, and I didn't do it on my story, I didn't do it on my page, because I didn't want to sour that. I didn't want to make people think that this was a shady,
Platform, yeah.
industry. But I sent it to people that I knew, and I'm like, heads up on this, heads up on this, heads up. And the fact that you most recently have brought some of that stuff to light, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you have to do that, because at the end of the day, it's not really about the t-shirt. It's not about, and I mean, it is about money, but at the end of the day, not so much the money, it's more about the business ethics and doing it the right way. Wouldn't you say?
100%. People think like, oh, how could you get so upset about a t-shirt? That's not what I'm upset about. I'm upset about that, and I'm nobody to teach anybody a lesson. At the end of the day, it's all about, who you want to be as a person. But, a lot of people don't have respect for each other and think that this is like a freebie, and if they can get over on you, then they will. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter the dollar amount, doesn't matter, the shirt, none of that matters. It's what matters is that you do good business and you say what you're going to do. Mina thinks that I'm crazy. I sell a shirt and I'm printing the label 30 seconds later. She's like, you're a psycho. And I'm like, it's not that I'm a psycho. It's that I know the value of, selling something and giving somebody tracking 5 minutes later, even if it goes out the next day. You know what I mean? It's just that feeling of having the tracking, that sense of security. It is great, my packages get to my house and I run downstairs and I get them the second they get here, and I let the person know, hey, I got the package, because it's also a good feeling when they receive the package and they've inspected the shirt and they're happy with it, so just the fact of doing good business with me goes a long way. I've been on both sides of the coin where I have bought something that somebody has said, hey, I lost it, or it's been a good deal. And I said, hey, I lost it, or hey, I got offered more money, or hey, I'm not ready to sell it, and then go sells it for more money 2 days later. I've been on that side, and then I've been on the side where I buy something at a good deal, and the person tells me, hey, I got offered more, and I'm going to honor your deal because that's the side of the business. That's a transaction. I've lost money on auctions. I've lost money selling items that you know, and then been more money later. And you know, the first person who did the deal with me, I've never gone back in a deal ever in my life in vintage. That's not what I'm about, and I don't represent that, and I don't want anybody to do it to me, so I don't do it to anybody else. Regardless if, hey, you know, I got offered $100 from this person, I sold it, and somebody came and offered me 200. That extra $100 isn't worth, you know, my integrity and that feeling of, hey, you know, I let somebody else down who was happy to get a deal, because again, I've been on both sides of that, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, man, that's going to take you a lot further down the
That's
road.
what I try to tell people, but you know, they seem to they seem to think that I'm crazy, you know. And a lot of
Yeah.
people are short-minded, you know. They want the fast money, and you know, fast money ends up being expensive, you know.
Oh, 100%. And it doesn't last. I mean, fast money never lasts. And you've been in, like you said, you've been an entrepreneur, you've been in other industries where you see, you know, the most important thing is that you're taking care of the people that you care about, you know, and yeah, that's always been my thing. You look at my prices and people, you know, I'll do pop-ups and things like that, and people are always like, how did you make so much money? And I said, I sold stuff cheap. And you know, and I don't bring grails, or I don't bring things that I know are crazy value, because they're just not going to sell. I bring things that people can afford. And
Correct.
what it does for me is it's not about selling something $10 or $15 less than what it's valued at online. It's about meeting that person, selling that person that thing that they want and that maybe has meaning to them, and then them coming back the next, you know, 2 or 3 weeks and saying, hey, what else do you have, and continuing. You know, I don't want to. You know, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, when you do bad business or you fast money, it just never. It's
Never
just
works out. It never
never
works out for you.
works. It never really does work. It's more about, you know, my dad always told me this, you know, there's a difference in short-term business and long-term business, and you always want to be on the side of the long-term business. You know, you want to continue for those people to come back, trust you, and build that friendship and that relationship. I'm in the healthcare industry, so it's always been that way for me ever since college, really. I've always, every sales position I've ever had, I've lost deals because I'm not going to be unethical, and I'm not going to tell them and sell them something they don't need. It's more about saying, okay, here's how I can help you on this side of things. Is this something you're interested in or you need? And they trust me so much more and respect me a lot more from that standpoint. So kudos to you, Wiz, for sure, for making that known and just kind of bringing that to light, because I think there are a lot of young people in this industry that are getting burnt.
Yeah,
And
there definitely is, and you know, people don't see it now, but the things you do early on when you start your page, or even later, you know, it takes a long time to build a good rep, and it literally takes 1 second, one slip up, one anything to lose it. You know, so it's
we
been
saw
happening.
that last week.
Yeah, yeah.
We saw that last week when that guy went live. That
Yeah.
was a train wreck.
People don't realize that. And I think Angel Alzona put it best. You know, what you do on the internet today, you might forget about tomorrow, but the internet doesn't, you know? So you got to be sure. And listen, I'm the first one that's had a mishap that I've slipped up, but I realize it. I'm apologetic about it. I try to do better. You know, I don't try to defend it. I don't try to say, hey guys, you know, it doesn't mean anything or whatnot. I realize that it's an error, and it's my fault, and I'm the first one to come clean about it. And I believe that's the best thing you can do when you're at fault is apologize. You know, some people
Oh
try to
yeah,
defend their actions, and they try to sidestep things. And you know, if you mess up, which we're all human, we mess up, and people will find it in their heart to forgive you if you're apologetic. But if you're not, I can't help you. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
nobody can help
yeah. I 100% agree. So that leads into the kind of the closing thing. What I do with everybody is I do a PSA. So, you know, like the old GI Joe and He-Man and all of those growing up as a kid, they always had a PSA at the end. So what would the Wiz's PSA be to? It can be to the vintage community. It can be just the people in general.
you. Well, I'm going to dedicate this one to the vintage community. First off, I want to say thank you to every single person that supports me day in and day out. The Vintage Wiz, the Wizette, the Lil Wiz are very appreciative of all the love and support that we receive. Obviously, you know, being on the other end of it, and you know, being a part of everything. I've never experienced, you know, love like this before from an outside community, from a bunch of outsiders that I don't know. And I want to truly say that I appreciate every single one of you. And, I'm always here to help. I tell people on the lives all the time, like, hey, listen, guys, I don't turn away price checks. I don't turn away authenticity checks. I don't turn away people asking for advice. I really, I like to do that. I like to help and to coach people to do better. And, my PSA is, guys, do good business. Protect yourself as a brand and as a person. Never let a piece of cloth and stitch get in front of who you are as a person and so people question your integrity. And that's pretty much it, man. I'm really big on that. I'm really big on people sticking by their word and whatnot. So, that's kind of my PSA is do good business and thank you to everybody. And thank you so much to you as well for having me on, Aaron. This has been really fun and I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the guys you get on.
Yeah, dude, it's been awesome. I mean, like I told you in the beginning, it's just talking shop, and it's it's been great, man. You exactly who you are, just you and I talking as you are on your lives, and that's what I love about it.
You know what I'm saying? That is what is important. And at the end of the day, man, nobody can, if you're being yourself, nobody can judge you. You know what I'm saying? You are who you are, and just stick to that. Buy what you like, sell what you like, and don't ever be somebody that you're not, because nobody likes that.
No, dude, I love it. I love it. So one quick thing before we hop off here. Heat check. I do a heat check every time. So I'm gonna ask you a series of like 4 questions. You just say the first thing that pops in your head. Okay? You good with that?
Yeah.
Favorite musician, favorite band.
Favorite musician, Anuel.
Who is it?
Anuel is my favorite musician.
Okay. Favorite food.
Is it a restaurant or food type?
Either.
Benihana.
Type of food. Yeah, type of food, restaurant.
Asian fusion, Benihana.
Okay.
Or Japanese fusion.
Okay. Favorite movie.
Casino.
Okay. And favorite TV show ever? You watch TV much?
Breaking Bad.
Oh, yeah. The movie's coming. The movie's on its way. You know that, right?
It is?
Yeah. Yeah, it's in the works. COVID slowed it down a lot, but it's in the works. So I'm pumped about that. Celebrity crush.
The vintage Wizette.
I knew you'd say that. You're smart. That's what I would say. I would say my wife too. Yeah, she kind of is a celebrity.
She's doing her first live tomorrow. I'm very excited.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, listen, I'll leave it with that, man. I appreciate you doing this. You're an awesome dude. Continue to do what you're doing, man, because you're blowing it up, and it's fun to watch and exciting. And I'll talk to you. I'd love to. I tell you, I don't know when you're planning the thing in Orlando, but I may have to hop on a plane and get down there. And
November 14th, we'll be out there. I'm really, really excited. So feel free to let me know, and we'll definitely chop it up out there, man. It's gonna be an amazing experience.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to get out there and get live with a lot of people, and I'm in the works of trying to get somebody to do production and camera for me. So. I'm on a small scale right now, but I'm getting there. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome.
But I appreciate it, man. Hey, have a good night.
Likewise, brother. Have a good one.
Thank you. So I hope everybody enjoyed episode number 19 with my buddy, the Vintage Wiz. So if you haven't already, check him out at the Vintage Wiz. His lives are absolutely hilarious. He does Wiz Wednesdays on Wednesday nights. He does the pre-party and the post-party for 1980-something Co. On the weekends. It's great entertainment. He's funny. Some great pieces going up for auction. He really interacts with the people that are on the lives, which I think is awesome. And he also has got his whole family involved. He's got Little Wiz as his own Instagram page, and then the Wizette is also blowing up with her own page and doing a lot of different lives and auctions. So if you haven't already, check them out on Instagram. Kirk's PSA was spot on. We hear this a lot. Just treat others the way that you would want to be treated. He talked about doing good business, and I think that's really important in this industry. A lot of us have gotten burnt, time in and time out with, things not being what they were described, or maybe not even getting the product and losing money from that standpoint. So I think it's important to really set those values and have good business ethics right out of the gate. And he also said, buy what you like and what you enjoy. I think when you do that, and we've heard that from other people, when you do that, it makes it easier to, give information or tell more people more about the product from that standpoint. So I hope everybody's doing well. We've got some really, really good guests lined up in the coming weeks. We're going to be doing some more of the podcast in shop. So I'm excited about that as well. If you haven't already, go to the website. It's hexlifestyle.com. Click on the boombox. The boombox will take you to our YouTube channel so you can watch the videos. And then we're also available on Apple and Spotify podcasts. So check it out. Leave us a review. Tell us some things that we can be doing to get better. I'm always open to new ideas and trying to improve this whole thing. So I hope everybody's doing well, and we'll see you next week.
De pasajero tengo la media 16. En el